Today on the Locked On Hornets podcast, the Hornets take it all the way to OT. Nick Smith Jr. and James Bouknight get important minutes. I've got David Walker here to discuss all of that and more on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
You are Locked On Hornets, your daily Charlotte Hornets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
In a minute, cuz we live.
This is Locked On Hornets. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets. That's guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com/Locked On to get started. Thanks so much for making Locked On Hornets your first listen every day. We are free. We are daily wherever you get podcasts, and that includes YouTube, where you can see me leading the show today. Walker feeling a little under the weather. He's got those January phlegm blues. Really what happened is he did not want to pay into the phlegm bucket. He's been dinged a couple of times, and he did not want to pay any more money into the phlegm bucket, and who can blame him? David Walker beside me, the OG crew, back together again. David, how are you?
I'm good. I'm going to try and avoid that phlegm bucket on all counts, but hopefully I won't be contributing to it either. Tell you what, Doug, let's just hope the internet, everything goes well on my end. We've got major wind warning in Charlotte today. So the kids are out of school. It's chaos. Right now it's just a little cloudy. So far so good.
All right, fingers crossed. We'll keep an eye on it. You can get more of me on my substack, Every Hornets Boxscore. I've got a full recap of this game against the Bulls in Spectrum Center at everyhornetsboxscore.com. You can also text me on the Sicko Brigade subtext. Join subtext.com/Locked On Hornets. So let's get to this game, David. I want to talk about how they got this game into OT. It's the back half of a home-and-home series with the Chicago Bulls. Just a few nights ago, they were in Chicago. They lost that game. They take this one into OT. They don't come away with the victory. Final score, 119-112. And then later, I want to talk about NSJ, James Bouknight, some young guys getting some important minutes. And, of course, we have to talk injuries because we had another one. I mean, it is absurd at this point. It is crazy. Right. The Hornets cannot go one single game without a new injury announcement. This one, Cody Martin not playing in this game due to a groin strain. He is day to day. But I don't want to focus on that. I don't want to focus on that right now. I want to focus on how they got this game into OT. David, what did you see? What were the differences between what essentially was a game that they were never truly in Chicago to a game in which they got this thing to OT?
Yeah, I mean, I think the Chicago one was a little bit of a schedule loss coming back from that West Coast trip. I think you guys hit on this, just ready to get home and just ran out of gas on their way back from the West Coast to Charlotte. So a bit of a I don't want to call it a trap game, but just, a letdown game in Chicago. And then getting home, getting a little energy back. The Bulls, they're dealing with injuries all over the place too, but they seem to be able to at least get their guys back on limited minutes. But, a lot of this was just Terry Rozier being like the second coming of Kobe Bryant, in some cases. I mean, it's literally unbelievable that he keeps doing this, and the shot making he's doing, the difficulty level, getting fouled on those threes, some called, some not. We'll get to that later. That certainly helps. But he is playing with such tremendous gusto right now, Doug, that he's taking it a lot on himself. Now, there were other guys that contributed, but, Miles Bridges obviously hit the tying shot, but they were just able to come back and keep scoring, get enough stops, not foul down the stretch on DeRozan, which was big. And kind of claw their way back into this one and just keep scoring. It's so hard for them to get stops, and when they do, I feel like their offense is like, oh my God, we have a chance to take a step forward here.
Yeah, I think a couple of things were going on. Obviously, Terry Rozier, 39 points, 10 of 18 shooting. The degree of difficulty on these shots, I will keep saying it, is really incredible. On both the threes that he's taking when he does the scary shuffle into the corner, the leaners, the distance that he gets, the distance that he moves from where he starts to where he finishes before he takes a jump shot is incredible. The space that he can open for himself on those. 7 made threes, but not only that, he was 12 of 12 from the free throw line. Dude was getting fouled all over the place, especially from 3, 8 assists and 0 turnovers. And that's super important because the Bulls were able to turn a lot of the other turnovers that other Hornets made, some in critical situations like in overtime, that they were able to turn those into easy points. That's what the Bulls do. The reason this was different, I think, is because you got a lot more defense from a lot more different places. I think JT Thor hustle plays, 6 offensive rebounds. Nick Smith Jr. gave you the offensive fire, the punch. Miles Bridges continued a string of good shooting nights. And you're right, they were able to just kind of hang in there despite the fact that, Andre Drummond again crushed you on the glass. Again, they cut off the paint. But they were doubling Terry, and Terry was either able to go quick. And that's where they hurt the Bulls, by the way. It wasn't in the half-court offense. It was their ability to adjust and say, all right, last game they were able to trap us too much. This game, we're going to get the offense started early and get some points that way. And they were able to do just enough to hang around with the team that, let's be honest, the Bulls, they are getting guys back, but they're not very good offensively. Like, if you're going to be a team that doesn't play defense consistently, play the Bulls, because the Bulls don't play offense consistently. And so they were able to get enough possessions to get it to overtime, but that they shouldn't have gone to overtime. This is a team that is down a ton of players. They look exhausted. Terry looked exhausted by the end of the game. Brandon Miller's sick. Steve Clifford said after the game he's gutting through it, asked out of the game multiple times, but he's playing through sickness that kept him out a game. And so you didn't need this game to go to overtime. And Terry Rozier had a shot at the end of the game, David, and a lot of people thought he got contact on that shot. Should have been free throws. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, he certainly thought he got fouled for sure. I never saw a great replay of it, but at the very least, I mean, you tell me, it sounded like I think DeRozan was on him, and it sounded like he didn't give him enough room to come down and land. Whatever it was, I feel like it could have been called. It has been called. It's called pretty consistently on the Hornets the other way. That sounds like I'm whining, but it's called a lot. Obviously, in a big last second shot scenario, I guess it's a little hard for those refs to blow that whistle. But I feel like the Hornets, they've earned it. Every once in a while they could get a call at home on the guy that's got 39 points on the night who gets fouled shooting the 3-pointer. So yeah, I'm with Terry. If he thinks he got fouled, and he definitely thinks he got fouled, I feel like the refs could have thrown him a bone there and just, let's take this thing out in regulation. Because you're right, dude. 6-0 run from the Bulls to start overtime, and it showed right from the beginning. The Hornets simply just ran out of gas. They really needed that game to end in regulation, and just didn't get the call. I mean, what'd you think of the play, the last play they drew up? It was out of a timeout. It looked like they just gave it to Terry and said, figure it out.
Why, again, do you blame them at this point? Look at, there's no one else on the court that you would do that for, except maybe Miles Bridges. But of the two, I'm going to go with Terry. He's consistently been able to hit difficult shots. And this is not, and the thing is, like, the Bulls were going to live with anyone else taking the shot.
Right.
But I think the Hornets had to give it to the guy that has been making difficult shots. And I thought he got a good shot, and I did think he got contact. And you're right, they have made that call all year, and they made that call in this game. He was fouled multiple times from 3 by the Bulls, and Donovan challenged one of those. It was his second challenge. He challenged one of those, and I just wonder if the refs had that in the back of their mind, that Donovan was upset that one of those didn't go his way, and they had called it multiple times already. But the fact was, the Bulls kept committing the foul because they were playing super aggressive on Terry Rozier. And that's the strategy. Clifford said it after the game. Teams are going to go after Terry because they know that the rest of the personnel is not going to step up and hit shots. Bryce McGowan's, JT Thor. There's just too many guys. Ish Smith is going to hit mid-range shots, but he's not going to hit outside shots. Miles Bridges is better, but he has been inconsistent from 3 in the past. And so, that's the game plan. And I think Terry said something interesting after the game. He said last season teams did the same thing to him. That when LaMelo Ball was not on the floor and it was up to Terry, they blitzed him, they double-teamed him, they tried to take him out of the game. He did not do as well in those situations last season when it was he and Kelly Oubre trying to carry the team. He learned from those situations. And he's obviously better at those situations, being able to score 39 points, despite the fact that the entire defense was focused on stopping you. We really can't say enough how impressive that is. And it'll be sad, if the Hornets decide to move on from him. I think they're going to get max value, but it'll be sad to see him go.
Yeah, well, the one thing I'll say on that one is I would have liked to have seen, and maybe this was the plan, right? In that situation, you want to try and get something on the rim so that you maybe have a chance for a rebound or a follow-up. Now, banking on the Hornets' ability to rebound may be a risky proposition, but, if you take a shot with a few seconds left and you can get 2 shots at a game-winning field goal, but ultimately their goal had to be, let's get the ball to Terry. Like, however we do that, he's going to be the guy with the ball in his hands making a shot. And it just seemed like that happened early, and he, dribbled at, tried to get a good shot off. And like you said, the ref blows a whistle there, everybody's fine, nothing's wrong. So just a bit of a gut punch there at the end because they were definitely exhausted.
Well, yeah, but it was a gut punch because you go into overtime and you allow an 8-0 run off blitzed. The jump, off the rip to the Chicago Bulls. And
yet he wasn't tired. Kobe White was not tired. I think he's still running up and down the court.
Best player in that draft. I called it. I'm telling you and me, OG crew, we called it. Kobe White, best player out of the draft. All right, I want to talk more about this overtime period because despite giving up an 8-0 run, that wasn't all she wrote. The Hornets did get back into that overtime period, and it was thanks to a young player who got some important minutes, Nick Smith Jr., coming up.
Don't go to sleep on the Hornets just yet.
And it wasn't just Nick Smith Jr. James Bouknight got some first half minutes. What do you think about that, David? Little Bouknight appearance.
Ooh,
It only took 17 players ending up on the injury list for Steve Clifford to finally relent. So that's coming up on the Locked On Hornets podcast. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. Around New Year's, we get obsessed with how to change ourselves instead of just expanding on what we're already doing right. And I do a lot of things right, folks, so you can take it from me. Maybe you finally organized one part of your space and you want to tackle another. Or maybe you're taking your supplements every morning and now you just want to actually eat breakfast too. What a concept. Therapy helps you find your strengths so that you can ditch the extreme resolutions and make changes that really stick. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online. It's designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapist anytime for no additional charge. Celebrate the progress you've already made. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA. That's BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. Back here on Locked On Hornets, want to tell you about something exciting that's happening on the Locked On Network right now, Locked On Podcast Network. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for your 24/7 coverage of the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows like Locked On NBA covering every single league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. Okay, so the Hornets missed.
Hold on, that's cool. This is the first I'm hearing of this. Is this the first time you've done this, Rob? This is amazing.
Yeah, well, you're going to have to go to YouTube and subscribe, yeah.
I will. As soon as I'll get double windows going here. That sounds like the old school ESPN, like actual sports news 24/7. What a concept.
Yeah, and I think if the Hornets ever get LaMelo Ball and some of these guys back, we'll have a chance of being on that stream at some point. Right now it's difficult for the Hornets. I did want to ask a question before we get to this OT period. I did want to ask a question. Would you take team street clothes or team available at this point? Because I can't believe this, but it would actually be, I think, a pretty fair fight. Let me give you the roster of team street clothes right now. It's LaMelo Ball, it's Gordon Hayward, it's Cody Martin, it's PJ Washington, and it's Mark Williams. That is a solid starting five right there against the starting five that the Hornets are going with right now, which is Terry Rozier, Bryce McGowens, Miles Bridges, Nick Richards, and who am I missing? Brandon Miller. Who are you taking? Team street clothes, team available.
Which team gets Nick Smith Jr.? as a sixth man.
He had a big game. He was getting huge minutes in this game. That's a good answer. He was getting huge minutes in this game. Not only he's been getting beginning of second quarter and beginning of fourth quarter minutes, which aren't small minutes. That's a significant bump in his minutes and his responsibility from earlier in the season, and he earned that by not being afraid to take big shots, hitting big shots, giving them a scoring punch. But in this one, his role expanded even more. He was on the closing lineup, and Steve Clifford decided to stick with him into the OT period. Now, do you think that was a consequence of how much of that, I guess, is a consequence of Cody Martin being out, and how much of that is you think NSJ is actually earning more and more of a role on this team?
Oh, yeah. I mean, obviously a little bit of both. I think Clifford and most coaches are going to trust their vet guys, the guys that have been there. But there were other options. You know, he could have put some guys who have been in the league a little bit longer out there.
He could have gone McGowan's there.
Right. So, I mean, I think Nick Smith Jr. did nothing but earn those minutes. And Clifford's been nothing but complimentary and really like heaping praise on him from what I've heard. You see him, he jumps off the screen. I mean, like, I know the shot making is there, the aggressiveness is there on offense, but like his energy level throughout is just, you can see it. And it's infectious, I think, to the rest of the guys out there. Yeah, he's going to make a mistake. He like the epitome of his play at times right now is that one play in the corner last night where he just started running before he actually had the ball and it went out of bounds, like a running back or a wide receiver that looks up and, tries to run before they get hit. And so he's still like a half step ahead, at times it feels like that, but he has an amazing ability on offense to really downshift when he needs to and make like a tough shot in the paint. A couple times, make those big threes. You have to love about both he and Brandon Miller, these two rookies. One, are not afraid of the big shot, and two, can oftentimes hit it when called upon. And he got a big chance in overtime there, I think, to bring it back to like a one possession game, and couldn't connect. But dude, Nick Smith Jr., huge find. We do like to crush Mitch, and everybody gives him a hard time, but that's a huge steal, I think, in the draft right there at this point in the season.
So Nick Smith Jr., at the end of the game in overtime, he hit a corner three with 1:40 to go after the 8-0 run, and so that brought them back. And then he missed the above the break three to pull it within one possession, and they got called for a bad screen moments later. And that was a you're getting high highs and some low lows with Nick Smith Jr. And I think Clifford has been careful to praise his shot-making ability. The thing that he does well 100% is make shots, and he's not afraid to take the shots, which is a big hurdle for a lot of young guys in those situations. He's been careful to praise that and only that, because Clifford, I think, recognizes that there are a lot of the parts of his game that need a lot of work. Passing. He did have 3 assists in this game, but there are a lot of passes that just hit guys at the knees. Again, simple passes where you're driving, kicking out to an open shooter like Bryce McGowan's or something, and they're catching at their knees and they need the extra half second to get the shot up. It's just stuff like that that's got to get cleaned up. It's the turnovers. But here's the thing. He plays with so much passion that you have to be confident. If you're Steve Clifford, you have to be confident that this guy is going to figure it out. And the way he's going to figure it out is through things that we don't see, like practice and off season, but he's going to figure a lot of stuff out in game. And I think these are important minutes, important learning experiences for Nick Smith Jr. And what you love to see too, David, is you mentioned that turnover, right? He was mad at himself at that turnover. Late in the game, fourth quarter, brutal turnover in a critical space. And he gets mad. He holds his head. He was on the floor.
Yeah,
guys rushed to him to pick him up. And but you could see him instantly go, all right, forget that. Check out. Got to let that go. Forget that. Get to the next play. That's what you love to see. He can play with passion, and he can play through the passion. I love that.
Yeah. And Clifford's also talked about, how he wants to get better. He's asking questions, he's listening, and Clifford just eats that stuff up, So, I can't imagine he's any less impressive in practice to these guys. And so, it's pretty fun to see. Also got a bit of a haircut on the flight back, it looked like. Got a bit of a business cut, so maybe What?
Yeah, he did.
I know you haven't had one in a while, so what'd you think about that?
Well, I mean, I know I got my hair cut a little bit shorter.
Sorry.
Not that short, not all the way. I mean, he took it to the fro and then took the fro off. And now we've seen this hurt players, Hornets players in particular. I think about PJ. There's a little bit of that like Samson idea of like cutting the hair or cutting the strength. And at the beginning of the game, at least, I thought, oh boy, here we go again. And no, but he was able to recover in this game and make some good plays. James Bouknight also got some first half minutes. And that's been very rare this season for Bouknight to get anything close to important minutes. Again, Cody Martin out. There weren't a lot of options for the Hornets to go to at the wing. So you go Bouknight. What did you see out of him?
I did not see much in those limited minutes. I mean, and I guess, you look at, Nick Smith Jr. ended up, 32 minutes of playing time?
Yeah.
And so at this point, the leash on for Bouknight is just so short, and I feel bad for him because it's almost like you have to go in there and either not only not mess up, but almost make an impact to keep guys off the floor, now to keep Nick Smith Jr. off the floor, it feels like, right? So it's going to be tough for him right now. And I feel bad for him because it's a difficult hole to crawl out of at this point, I think, because there isn't a lot of trust there. There isn't a lot of proven history of being able to put him on the court and having, good things happen. So it's going to be tough.
Yeah. I mean, look, once the contract was not extended, the story is really written. They're going to prioritize players that they feel like are a part of their future over players that they don't feel that way. But Bouknight, to his credit, he gets an opportunity here to showcase himself a little bit, put something on tape when he goes to, audition for other teams. And he made a couple of good plays. He does get back cut pretty brutally by Caruso, but so did Terry Rozier at the end of the game and in overtime. That was one of the plays during that 8-0 run. But he recovered and got a chase down block. He also hit an open three moments later. But then, of course, Kobe White gets into transition and goes one-on-one against Bouknight. And Bouknight cannot move his feet, cannot stay at all with Kobe and commits the foul. So there are obviously still defensive issues with Bouknight, but he does make a couple of plays.
Hey, Doug, one question for you on the NSJ thing, because I saw, and I think it was Rod, our buddy Rod on Twitter, was just saying, kind of echoing those thoughts of, man, why isn't Dennis Smith or Nick Smith Jr., why hasn't he played more earlier? Why is this the first we're seeing of it? And like, I totally hear that. And I know I get the Clifford narrative, but like I look at him and I still see the rushing in areas, and I think that's probably why. I mean, he is a rookie; he's 19 years old. Like, I think a lot of times when guys aren't playing, it's not always because the coach doesn't want them to play. It's because they really do need some adjustment time, and I'm guessing that's what happened here. Plus, yeah, if you have Cody Martin available, if you have some of these other guys available, there's not going to be the opportunity for that. But I think he's carving himself out some minutes here. I just think that it probably worked itself out that way, as opposed to Clifford being like, I'm not going to play the young guys anymore.
No, look, he believes in minutes earned, not minutes given. And so I think that's the path that's being taken by Nick Smith Jr. He's earning these minutes. He's earning this opportunity. He was able to hang, surprisingly, because size difference, he was able to hang with DeRozan and force him to the side in those pick and roll situations.
Yeah.
Like you can see moments, but yeah, look, if you're a head coach and you're trying to win basketball games and you're given the choice between Nick Smith Jr., who, here's where I understand where fans are coming from, because they look at the Hornets' offensive numbers and they go, this is one of the worst offensive teams in the league. And Nick Smith Jr. can come and give you like instant 10 ramen noodles. Mm-hmm. Why not go with him? And the answer is, I think, because if given the choice between him and another player where you feel like you're not going to feature either player in the offense. Like Nick Smith Jr. is going to get opportunities, but you're not going to make him the featured player. So if you're going to give him an opportunity versus Cody Martin, who's not going to make as many mistakes and is not going to take you out of as many possessions, then you're probably going to go with that guy. And I think that's really all it comes down to. But he has opened up a place in the rotation for Nick Smith Jr., in the second quarter, in the fourth quarter, which he didn't have to do. Like, he could have continued to shorten the rotation as he did earlier in the season and just exclude Nick Smith Jr. altogether. He's not doing that. He obviously sees the potential there and is creating a space for that. But, look, whatever you think about it, Steve Clifford's job is to go out there and try to win a basketball game. And so he's going to go with the players that he thinks gives him the best opportunity to do that. He's not necessarily concerned with, I've got to get Nick Smith Jr. minutes so that in year 2 or 3 he has that experience.
Yeah.
Just it. Bottom line. Okay. All right, coming up on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Don't go to sleep on the Hornets just yet.
The more Thor movements. You thought it was dead. You had buried it. You put it 6 feet in the ground. And then all of a sudden, a hand shoots up out of the dirt. It's not dead yet. JT Thor, I've still got to talk about this guy. That's coming up on the Locked On Hornets podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL regular season is wrapping up. The playoffs are upon us. But there's still time to get in on the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. The app is so easy to use, and there are so many different ways to bet. For example, you can do live same-game parlays. I like that they give you the SGP, the same game parlays. They set some up for you because I get paralyzed by choice, like TV channels or Netflix or figuring out what to watch. So I like that they give you a couple of same game parlays. They set you up. They help you out. Find bets in the new Explore tab. You can make a parlay in the Parlay Hub, the best way to find popular parlays and more, including you can get lines on who's going to win the NCAA men's basketball championship. And so, David, I'll ask you as my fellow UNC expert. You're the one that I go to because I don't keep tabs on the team like I used to. So I go to you as my expert, and they are plus 2,500 right now to win the NCAA men's basketball championship. That's $10 to win $250. You slapping down a 10-ski on the Tar Heels to win it all.
A couple of those odds, yeah. I think this team, unlike a lot of Carolina teams we're used to seeing, can win a couple of different ways. They've won 2 recent rock fights in Pittsburgh and Clemson. They weren't high-flying, high-scoring events, and they were able to gut them out, something they have not been able to do in the past. So I think there's a level of toughness, and the defense is rounding into form now. Hubert Davis has those guys rebounding where they weren't previously. And, it's an interesting team. Big game this week, Doug, in Raleigh at 8 o'clock, buddy.
All right. Well, I also want a line on whether or not Armando Bacot will still be playing for the Tar Heels when my children go to college.
We can only hope. Come on, NCAA, wise up, buddy. Come on. This guy deserves another year.
All right. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet a layup. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. More Locked On Hornets.
Why is Armando the only guy in college getting crapped on for playing 8 years? It's happening left and right. Kids are literally playing. It's almost like they're transferring week after week, and he's the only guy here getting crap for it.
I've hit a nerve. More Locked On Hornets ahead. Back here, final segment on the Locked On Hornets podcast. Guy we haven't mentioned, Miles Bridges. Want to talk about him in just a second, but I did tease before the break. JT Thor, 6 offensive rebounds in this game. I think 5 of those came on one possession where he just kept putting back his own miss. That's an easy way to get a career high. But even still, the amount of hustle plays that JT Thor made in this game, getting the 50-50 ball, saving an opportunity for the Hornets out of bounds that ended up being a 3-point make for the Hornets. He was all over the place. I didn't know if JT Thor was going to get a single opportunity, but that was foolish because the Hornets have enough injuries where anyone at the end of the bench is a danger to go into a game at this point. Look, the shot making still isn't there, David, but Thor still has an argument here to remain part of this rotation. It's not a big argument, but he's made a little bit of an argument to stay in it.
Well, and it probably helps him that the Bulls had both Vucevic and Andre Drummond, in the lineup playing at times, because any help the Hornets can get on the boards Clifford's probably going to throw out there and just say, just go bounce around, put your hands up, try and deflect some balls and get some rebounds out there. But, Thor is a classic Hornets draft pick / developmental player in that he just didn't come in with the right amount of
shooting,
half-bakedness.
Shooting. It's all about shooting. Some of this is complicated. A lot of it isn't. If he were able to hit open shots, which he gets all the time in the corner or on the wing, if he were able to hit those shots with some level of consistency, doesn't have to hit every one, but if he hits it at, even a 33% mark.
Yeah.
If he just, hits 1 out of 3, then you're happy with that kind of production overall. But he hasn't shown an ability to do that. And I think it's going to be the same thing that we keep an eye on with other players like Bryce McGowan's and even Mark Williams. If Mark Williams doesn't end up developing a shot, then I think, he's in the long term scouts as more of a backup center than a starting center for an NBA, a league that continues to evolve into a 5-out space. I don't know if the Hornets are ever going to be able to acquire enough elite shooting to be able to do something like what the Golden State Warriors would do with Pachulia or Bogut or anything like that, where you get away with having a 5 you can't shoot because all 4 of the other guys are not good shooters, not great shooters, but elite shooters. That's what you have to do. But I don't think the Hornets are ever going to get to that point. Maybe they do, but I don't think they will. And so Mark Williams has got to develop a shot. So that's what it comes down to with all of these prospects is can they develop an ability to consistently hit shots, and Thor has not been able to show that, unfortunately.
Yeah, but I'll tell you what, he's probably still going to get some chances, and if some of these trades happen,
if he survives it, if he's not part of one, that's the thing.
True.
A lot of these guys like McGowan's and Thor have to be looking at this situation and going, I could very well be on another team after the trade deadline because they will be seen as utilities in terms of making numbers work as opposed to utilities that you would want to actually employ on the floor. So we'll have to see about that. Miles Bridges continues a streak of 3 or 4 games now of good shooting nights, efficient shooting nights, hitting 3-point shots where he wasn't really hitting at all, badly missing from 3 prior to these last 3 or 4 games after Miles Bridges admitted, hey, I'm not playing well right now. I've got to play better. He takes responsibility for his own play, and he steps it up. Got to give him credit for that, Walker, or David Walker.
Either
Walker,
one works. Still works.
That's why I enjoy you as being the sub, because I don't get to be wrong. Miles Bridges, at the end of this game, was part of that 8-0 run by the Bulls. He makes a pass, tries to zing a all-star level pass to Brandon Miller instead of making an easy play to extend the possession. Tries to get one out in to Brandon Miller, and it's another turnover. I think he's made some mistakes late in games, and I'm not saying anything, David, that he's not admitting after the game that he's making some errors, that he said he's overthinking things right now. What have you seen from Miles Bridges just over the past couple of weeks?
Yeah, it's an odd mix of being ready to play and still being rusty. It's just probably the mental aspect of just not having played in so long. Honestly, when he came back, I thought he was more ready to go than I thought he would be. I mean, he looked more in the flow of things, but he doesn't have the explosiveness. He doesn't have quite the fluidity that I thought we had seen, before he sat out for a year. I didn't love the top of the key 3-pointer that he threw against the backboard in regulation. Now, he did obviously made up for that and made a tough, smarter shot, in my opinion, 2-point shot at the mid-range to tie it up. So that was good. It does look like he's overthinking a little bit. You have to think it would be really, really bad if he wasn't out there, though, Doug. I mean, at least with him and Terry, you feel like you're in the games just from a talent standpoint. If those two guys, can play at the top of their ability, the Hornets have chances against a team like the Bulls for the most part, but still have chances to be in these games. And the playmaking and the facilitating is not quite there, but that may not be also, he's taking a lot of blame for that, but it's also a lot of new guys out there playing. It's also some guys trying to find their groove within the offense. You know what I mean?
It's him having to make plays, and that shouldn't be his role. He had 5 turnovers in this game. They just need guys like Gordon Gordon would be doing that in that lineup. Obviously, LaMelo Ball would be taking a lot of that responsibility. You know, he needs to be a shot maker, a catcher of lobs, an occasional ISO turnaround scorer like he did to send them into overtime. Like he's just playing. He's playing well outside of his role.
If it's, to your point, if it's Nick Smith Jr., Terry, Brandon Miller, and Miles, like who's making things happen for other people, right?
Right.
So,
but they're not in this game at all. They're not in this game at all if he shoots under 50%. Like he's 9 of 18 from the field. He's 4 of 8 from 3. It was his 3-point shooting, especially in the first half, that kept this thing from getting to like 15 or 20 and it being a repeat of the game in Chicago. So he is a part of why they are staying in games, and also because he's playing outside of his role is a reason why they can't get over the hump and win a few of these games. And so, you know, barring a few guys coming back against Sacramento, though, we're going to see a very similar lineup when they play Sacramento in Charlotte before going back out on the road after Wednesday's game against Sacramento. So we'll just have to see how it all develops. Tomorrow, I want to talk. I don't know if Walker's going to be on the show. David, I might have to have you back again. Not have to. I want to. If you want to be back, you're always welcome. You know that. Don't act like that. Don't act like I just said that. Don't get offended. I want to talk about Mark Williams. Weird injury updates from Mark Williams, both from the team and a weird tweet from Mark Williams as well. I love analyzing tweets, trying to look behind the scenes on a tweet. So we'll have to take a look at that tomorrow. Until then, thanks so much for making Locked On Hornets your first listen of the day. Make sure you're checking out Locked On Sports Today live on YouTube. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus those national shows like Locked On NBA covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. David is impressed.
I'm going right now.
I'm thankful for David being on this show. And I'm thankful for you for watching this show and joining Subtext and going to everyhornetsboxscore.com. Until tomorrow, go Hornets, go America. Let's swarm Charlotte.